I want to talk a little bit today here in Courageous Conviction about the Beatitudes, if you would, or the Sermon on the Mount, right? And explain a little bit here, just briefly. I want to take a message here and just read this, and I think it's very important for people to understand this part. Listen to this from the book Jesus the Christ, right? This is the one of the only books missionaries can still take with them when they first leave onto the mission field. And it goes on to talk here. He's talking about, it says, of the old principle of retaliation had been tolerated, by which one who had suffered injury could exact or inflict a penalty of the same nature as the offenses, right? Thus, when Christ talked about, thus an eye was demanded for the loss of an eye, a tooth for a tooth, life for life, law of Moses, right? In contrast, Christ taught that men should rather suffer than do evil. And that's what we hear today. And that's all we hear today. And it's almost as if we shouldn't stand up to defend freedoms and shouldn't stand up to defend our religious rights. And we shouldn't even worry ourselves about politics, even though that does affect us so much, because we're just supposed to stand here and say, well, Christ taught men that they should rather suffer than to do evil. I guess standing up is evil to some people, even to the extent of submission without resistance under certain implied conditions. Now, I'm reading this to you right here in Jesus the Christ. Okay? This isn't me making this up. This is our doctrine. So that's what implies, or it seems to imply, his forceful illustrations that if one were smitten on the cheek, he should turn the other to the smiter. And that's the attitude we're taking. However, that if a man took another's coat by process of law, the leader should allow the cloak to be taken also. So we'll just allow illegal immigration. They can come in and we'll just give it all to them, right? Because that's what we should do. That's what Christ taught us to do. Correct? That's what we're reading here. That if one was pressed into service to carry another's burden a mile, he should willingly go 2 miles. That one should readily give or lend as asked. Again, I've heard the same thing from church members about the illegal immigration. My mom this morning, we're talking about the same thing, but I need to be Christ-like about it. And that's the attitude people have, Christ-like. But let's go on to understand what an eternal or celestial understanding would be. And he says, these are not to be construed as commanding abject subservience to unjust demands, nor as an abrogation of the principle of self-protection. Interesting. These instructions were directed primarily to the apostles, not the disciples, who would be professedly devoted to the work of the kingdom to the exclusion of all other interests. I just would like to share that with you so we have an understanding and get to know better what Christ then was really like and how we really should be today in this world. It's very confusing. I understand it. I get it. It's a hard line. My mom was telling me this morning for the illegal immigration issue. You guys have to understand, I lived 20 years of my life in Latin America. I lived, and in my positions, I worked with the governments. I worked with the people in the culture. So I have a really, really good understanding, and I would offer to say that there's probably not many people out there. I'm sure there's people out there that have a greater understanding than I do. But I don't know if they sat for 25 years of their lives to understand the cultures like I did. I researched these cultures. I studied cultures. We went places, and I just observed. And that's what I did for 25 years of my life. I'd read, studied, went, stayed. I didn't vacation. I'd spend months, and we'd go back and spend a month or 2 months or 3 months in a country and get to know that country and that society and that area and the way that people think and are and study them before we went. Point being that my mom was saying this morning, but we need to be Christ-like. There are good people coming over. That's right. There are some good people coming over, some of them right now. I believe right now what you're having more is that invasion of those that would come to America and come to this land because we broke our covenant and take our inheritance from us. That's what you're having right now. I don't think those really good people yet are coming yet. I know that because I'm still talking to some. I've helped bring some over, sponsored them, I should say. I sponsored them. I didn't bring them over here. They got visas and they came here legally. And I helped sponsoring them, get them here and so forth and try to get them set up. And they didn't want to go to work. They wanted to go and get the free handouts. What they're coming for now are the freebies, not necessarily come here and build up this nation or rather even the kingdom of God. And these were members of the church I'm talking about. So they don't get it. They don't understand it because they're not living that law, right? They just want things. They want money and they want to get ahead and they want to pay their debts and they got themselves a sort of bind. A lot of these people have. And these were good people. How they came up with a $25,000 debt is beyond me. Now, what happens a lot of these people, though, in a lot of the Latin cultures, is they are used to money laundering. And they'll bring that with them because the cartels get them here, right? So that's something we got to be concerned as well. It's not just good people coming, there's a lot of bad people coming. And those good people coming, even though their cultural mindset is very different. So we need to be very, very careful about giving our coat away, about if they take our home, homestead our home, or not homestead our home, but if they come in and they squat our home, then we should give that to them. If we have two, we'll give them one. That's not right. Alma 47, Alma 46, 48, those chapters are going to replete. Well, you can go from 46 all the way through 49. We can keep going. Or replete with, we have a right to defend our property and our religion and our freedoms. And that's an obligation, not just a right. And I offer to you then that we do need to stand to defend things. I mean, I could even continue here. We talked about we don't defend ourselves ever. That's not true. And Talmage goes on to explain in this book that we do need to defend ourselves. In fact, that's an obligation we have, is to defend ourselves. If we don't, then we're actually just subverting a responsibility that we have here on this earth. Just for what we're saying, well, I'm living the commandment. I'm going to live what Christ told me to do. Are you? Or are you just living the superficial wording of that and not seeking out yourself to understand what he really truly meant behind that? I offer that we need to study more. We need to do our own research. We need to dig in deep and not just listen to what's said across the pulpits, especially today. A lot of confusion out there right now. A lot of leaders getting information from wrong sources. A lot of leaders, like in Latin America, that are now, because we have this smorgasbord of nations now that address us in general conference, which I'm not arguing with, but you have to understand they come from cultural worldviews that are very different than ours. They don't understand the Constitution. The people coming here never grew up the Constitution. Their worldview is different, and they feel everybody owes them. Most of them, 90% of them. That 10% that might be the good is not going to help us maintain this Constitution and a nation as a whole. We're so divided. This is what Russia did. This is what Stolzhenitsky wants to warn us of in his books, Gulag Archipelago, etc. I've mentioned this in my other videos. These are things we need to take in consideration and understand that love many times means we draw a hard line, that we're stern. We're stoic, and we're stern on certain principles, but we're loving as well. You ever sat down and talked to general authorities? I mean, really sat and talked with them? They're very stern people, very serious people. Most of them are. You get to see a different side. I believe that God has a sense of humor, but I also think he's very serious and stoic and stern when need to be. And Christ many times was very stern. And that's one of the reasons why they ended up killing him, was because he was so stern. He wasn't just giving and just flowing and just to be sacrificial. He allowed himself to be taken for a purpose. When he comes back, he won't allow himself to be taken again. You see, he'll stand for that. And it won't happen. And he doesn't want the saints to be taken either. He doesn't want us to be subjected to slavery. He doesn't want us to be subjected to tyrannical governments. He wants us to be a free people so that we can worship him and do good things for other people and not be worried about how we survive from day to day. I offer that to you. If you like this kind of content, the facts, the truth, the real celestial law that we should be living, live celestial. Don't just think celestial, live celestial. Please like, subscribe. We'll see you in our next video.